Do you ever feel like your self worth or your worthiness is tied to what you do as a person for other people? Like you feel that you have to help people, you have to try save people, or you're always concerned about other people and where they're at. And sometimes you feel that, if you don't do those things, then maybe you won't be valued by that person, or you won't be seen as worthy by that person because of what you're doing for them. So essentially, like, your value or your self-worth is essentially coming from them validating that, oh, you do this for me and you do that for me, therefore I should value you as a person. I've seen people where they feel like they have to do stuff in order to feel worthy, because one, either they're people pleasers, or two, they just feel like they just want to put themselves onto people because they essentially, generally, they want to help, and it comes from a good place. But what happens at the same time, those people tend to forget that about themselves, and they'll prioritize other people, and they will feel a type of way when now either people don't appreciate what they do, or who they are, or how they're trying to help them, and they start to feel like, oh, I've done this for you, 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 and you don't appreciate what I'm doing. And the difficulty that comes from situations like that, when you do stuff for people and they're tied to how you view yourself and how you value yourself, it essentially makes you feel less worthy. And it makes you feel like what you do is not appreciated. So, how does that work in reality? Let's say you've got a partner, you say you've got a friend, and this friend or partner, they, you know, sometimes they probably don't have themselves in the best of places. They they're a little bit messy sometimes, as some humans are. They're a bit messy, or sometimes they don't stick to what they say they're going to do. You get frustrated by certain things that they do, and through that you try to help them to change. Through that you try to help them to move forward. I can relate because I'm somebody who likes to help people. But what I've learned over the years is you can't help people who don't want to help themselves. And there's only so much effort and time you can put into somebody until you start to feel like, I swear they're not appreciating what I'm doing. So when you're putting in so much time and effort into being that person for somebody, to help them, to save them, to essentially guide them and support them. Of course, with people we love and accept, we need to do that. However, if we feel like, what this person is doing is not making me feel good about myself, that's how you know your self-worth is tied to what you're doing for them. Sometimes we need to stop and think about, why essentially are we doing certain things for people? Are we doing it because we want to do it generally? Most of the time we want to do it, but most of the time what we're doing is we're seeking connection. We want a connection. We want to feel seen. We want to feel accepted, and we want to feel worthy, and like we're important in that to that person or in that person's life. And our way of naturally doing that as people is essentially by, you know, doing stuff for those people. Um, I watched a video over the weekend, and the video touched on stuff like this about how someone's sense of worth is tied to what they do. Now, remember, once I asked somebody, they were really like really helpful to a lot of people. And I asked them, do you feel like those people that you do all those things for will still value you, or they'll still validate you if you stop doing what you did? They were like, I would like to think so. And sometimes we'll do certain things for people because it makes us feel good about ourselves. It makes us feel good about ourselves. But in the long term, if we're constantly doing and doing and doing and giving, sometimes it gets to a point where we burn ourselves out, and then we're just like, where do I go? So, and through this, we have this internal dialogue where it's essentially tied to us helping people and fixing other people, or being a savior, like kind of like a savior complex. Because generally, it's very, it ends up being very like a codependent relationship where either that person's relying on you and you are relying, or that person's relying on you to save them, not really to save them, to be there for them, and you are going to be there for that person and try to help them. And through that codependency is difficult. It's really, really difficult to kind of navigate, because sometimes you don't recognize you're somebody that's codependent, or that thrives in codependent relationships. As you can see in my bio, I like to help people. Over the years, I've started to realize, not everybody wants to be helped, you know. Like, you got to leave people to do their own thing. Just because you like to help, that don't mean you should help. Helping is good when the people are open to it and they want it, not you imposing your help on them. Don't get me wrong, sometimes you can say, okay, this person really, really needs help, but it's also about respecting people's boundaries and actually understanding, like, do these people actually want my help? You may look at it like they need your help. Just because you think they need your help, that don't mean they want your help. Sometimes you have to let people figure out stuff for themselves. You've got to let people go on their own journey, their own hero's journey, in order to go on that adventure and figure stuff out for themselves. Helping somebody sometimes and taking their hand through a process does not allow them to learn the necessary stuff that they should learn if you are helping them. People need to want to help themselves, people need to want to save themselves. And the need to be there and help people is something that we deal with when we love or care about people. I've been in certain situations in my life where I've seen friends, family, and I'm like, I really want to help you right now. But then sometimes you just have to take a step back, because what you don't want to do is enable people. And enablement is the biggest bugbear for people to stay in their situation. Sometimes it doesn't seem like you're enabling people because you think you're generally helping, but sometimes wanting to help people and your self-worth being dependent on, helping and supporting people and doing whatever you need to do won't help you in the long run, and it won't help the other person in the long run, because one, you're always going to feel like whatever you do is not enough for that person to value you, because that, for real, that person, a lot of times they're in their own little world, they're dealing with what they're dealing with, and sometimes they're not focused on what you're doing. Remember, people are living in their own worlds, they're trying to figure out stuff for themselves, and they're trying to understand themselves. And just because, for example, you have figured out that part of yourself or of life, and you understand that part of life, that doesn't mean that the other person needs your help or support to get there. And it's about understanding when to step back, and when to allow people be them, and let them take their own journey and take their own steps, essentially. So, and it's about recognizing that your worth is not tied to you doing stuff for other people, and it's not dependent on external validation by somebody like, oh, well done, thank you for doing that for me, I really liked how you helped me. Your worth comes from yourself. Only you can validate yourself. If you're waiting for people to validate you because of what you do, then you're gonna be disappointed. If your self-worth and you is tied to just you simply just being who you are. You maybe just be who you are, maybe a person who generally likes to, be there for people. But if that adds that extra layer to you being, okay, I do this because I need to feel like, I'd like to help. I do this, you know, for the goodness of my heart kind of thing. It's more like, okay, how far can you take it until you feel like what you're doing is not appreciated, or the things that you do for people are making you feel less than worthy, if that makes sense. And it's about accepting yourself for just, who you are, and nurturing your own needs as a person, rather than trying to nurture other people's needs and helping other people to essentially meet their own needs. Sometimes it's okay to focus on yourself first. And what I've started to learn in my journey is that just because I want to help, that don't mean I should help. And that's when those boundaries start to come into place. And now sometimes I can just sit back and just observe, and simply observe. And unless the person really wants to know sometimes, or really wants the help, then I step in. And I think for me it's hard as well, because of the work that I do. I generally want to help as a person, but I've started to realize, yeah, not everybody is. Everything is about energy. Everything is about where people are at on their journey, and their level of consciousness, and their level of awareness. And if somebody's level of awareness is not to the level of awareness that's required for them to cross the threshold, they're not going to be able to do that. And when you start to recognize that, just because you want somebody to move forward, or you can see the gaps or the loopholes that somebody has, or you know and you try to help them because you can see it, because for you it's something that you've gone through, something that you've dealt with, and it's easy for you to be able to help that person through. Sometimes it's difficult to get people to see things from that perspective if they are not ready to see it. People can only see certain things when they're ready. And that's what I realized about myself as well. When, for example, I've been going through like certain things, and there's people that will say, "Oh, why are you acting like that?" Then I'm like, "Because this is what I know at the moment." And then people will tell you, "But why don't you do this?" Well, if I could do that, I would do it. And right now, I'm doing what I'm doing because this is what I know. And until I have that awareness and I'm ready for that next step, I will continue to do what I'm doing right now. And it's about somebody, for example, taking it on yourself. It's about you being aware of where you're at in your life, and being honest about where you are as a person, and actually what your self-worth or your worthiness is tied to. We tend to have a tendency of tying our self-worth or our worthiness to external things. And when I mean your worthiness is just by you being, it just means like you existing, you being here, you being alive, you learning every day, and not having to prove anything to anyone or to yourself. And understanding that your journey is yours alone, and other people's journey is theirs alone. And you can try to help other people, you can try to force yourself to change, but that won't happen until you're actually consistent and you're actually ready. And it's you about being it's you about recognizing your humaneness, essentially, that when you are ready and when you are ready to see certain things from a certain perspective, the things will start to happen and life will start to reveal itself. And life revealing itself is not it tied to anything just by you, rather than you just being open to experiences and you open to learning and you open to being with yourself and going within yourself. And there's beauty that comes from your inner voice and going within yourself. And the more you start to pay attention, the more it becomes more clearer where you're at. So it's about understanding that as much as people, we may tie our self-worth to certain things, our self-worth can only come from internally, and by us going within ourselves and having the courage to confront ourselves and go within. And that's the hardest people that the hardest thing people deal with, just them being able to look within and be honest with themselves. But if we are, the honesty is hard because people most of the time know. They know, but they avoid and or they blame. And self-awareness, true self-awareness comes from us admitting where we are, maybe what our drawbacks are and our strengths are, and then wanting to work and move forward. I remember once when I was, like I was I was kind of lost and confused, and I didn't know like where I was coming or going. And instead of dwelling on, oh, if I, if I if I instead of dwelling on the what ifs, what I wanted, I just let myself experience life and be open to it. And the answers started to come. And sometimes understanding and the how come, and the how of how to move forward, of where you're going, won't come until you actually just become open to experiencing and open to, you know, understanding that you're not validated by anything but yourself, and you don't have to prove anything to yourself. And you just being you is enough. And I feel like sometimes we are critical and we don't appreciate how far we've come, or how far we we've grown as people, or appreciate our efforts, because that inner voice that we have sometimes is not our best friend. It keeps us in a loop, in a loop, and a loop, in a loop, and it's difficult to get out of that loop. But once we're able to recognize that there is a loop that we're in, it's much easier for us to be able to actually move forward. And then the conversation shifts from, um I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, and our identity, to you just, you know being. And that's a much more beautiful place to be. And it's about, not abandoning who you are to meet other people's needs, essentially, or to try to figure out stuff that maybe you're not ready to figure out. And it's about taking one step at a time. And we're going to be stuck, we're going to be lost, we're going to be confused, and that's a normal part of life. But until we recognize that who we are, who we're becoming, is enough, and it's not validated by what we own, what we do for other people, um, anything else but how we feel about ourselves. Everything goes to how we feel about ourselves. And if we're honest about how we feel about ourselves, we'll be much more aware and, clearer on where we're at. So if you were to ask yourself, how do I feel about myself? You could either say, okay, how do I feel? I feel good. I feel like I'm not consistent. I feel like I am making progress. And actually flipping that on this script on this head and saying, you know what, like, yeah, maybe I'm not where I want to be, but where I am is okay, is good, and I'm content. And but the main thing that overtakes us is that normal voice, which is sometimes critical. And some of us live with that voice constantly. And then we forget that there is actually another voice that can actually guide us if we took the time to be quiet. And it's about us reflecting on our personal experiences and, you know, embracing ourselves towards more like a healthier self-expression that's not dependent on other people. And what you will start to see is you're not influenced by people, you're not influenced by external sources, you're not influenced by trying to please other people. And you will express yourself knowing that, okay, other people may not like what I say or they may not like what I do, but I'm happy with what I'm doing and I'm happy with how I'm expressing myself. And there's joy and this peace that comes from just generally aligning yourself with how you truly feel as a person rather than being, constantly trying to make sure other people are, you know, happy with how you're showing up for them or how you're showing up for for yourself essentially. But everything is about showing up for yourself. And through that leads to you being more truly authentic within yourself as an individual, and you grow and you learn. And through that, you learn to essentially pause, to gain perspective, and to be able to pivot your life. And being our self-worth is tied to how we see ourselves. And sometimes we just have to take a step back and understand that who we are is enough just by simply being every single day of our life. And we can confuse ourselves because we feel like we don't have it all together, but who really does? Who really has it all together? Really and truly, who has it all together? um Somebody has got something they're working on every single day, and that's just the reality of life. And if we don't take a step back to recognize our humaneness and be kind to ourselves in the process, and not have to prove our worth, then you will see how everything will align much more easier in your life and much better in your life, because you're much more aligned with who you are. And when you're aligned with who you are, life flows for you. Life is flowing, and you're much better. You're in a better position to be able to handle certain things that life throws at you when you're truly flowing with life. But that comes with awareness and learning the different things that are impacting you as a person, on how you feel like your worthiness is coming from. So maybe a little thought process for you could be, where do you think your have you been tying your self-worth to certain things? Or is your self-worth generally just coming from you being, and you being, you know, you? Let me know in the comments how you are, how your worthiness has been, you know, tied to. and where you've been getting it from. Are you somebody maybe who feels like they constantly have to save people and help people to feel worthy? Or have you now moved forward and understand that not everybody needs fixing? You just need to be yourself. And then through that, your worthiness is there, regardless. Whether you're doing stuff for other people, and the main thing, you're showing up for yourself every day as you truly are. But no, let me know in the comments and share this with somebody who needs to hear it.